Hello and welcome to another episode of the Watch Black Mirror podcast, the podcast where we watch Black Mirror seasons in reverse order, except for season 7 because that came out after we started. I am Jorgen Smorgasbord.
And I am Jim with a G, and I have a lot fewer technical details to follow up with.
And what have we watched today, Jim?
We have watched the first episode of Black Mirror.
We got there.
We're done, except for the rest of season 1, and also the fact that we're jumping back to season 7.
Which is like a bit of a longer season. So
yeah.
like we've got like 2-3 months like of Black Mirror left, probably.
Yeah.
But nevertheless.
Today we have watched the National Anthem. Is this the most British episode?
It's up there.
Because I hear a couple of ones I'm gonna throw out during the course of this episode to compare to, but I think this might be the most British one.
Now,
it has
Jim,
the Queen.
I'm realizing that we have not prepared ahead of time for content warnings.
No, but I was thinking, okay, so let's get at it, okay? So the first one,
bestiality.
Like
a little bit of gore, but not much.
Yeah,
and
suicide.
Shit.
Yeah,
mutilation.
Mutilation, yeah.
And I think those are the big ones.
We could just say like kidnapping.
Yeah.
I might as well.
Editing Jorgen here, coming at you with just one more content warning, which is that we end up talking about beheading videos in this episode a decent amount. Should you watch this episode, dear listener?
Yeah. It's complicated.
I think for the first time I would do a second yes/no to start the episode, which is: do we think this was supposed to be funny? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes.
It's probably the funniest episode.
You know what?
I'm
changing my vote. I think maybe not.
Really?
Like it is played so straight.
But I think that's okay. Like this is getting into like
that is why it's funny.
Yeah, but I also think like that's getting into the analysis of the episode. I think because I'm gonna go into this saying something. I think you're gonna speak a lot more to this episode than I am because it hits some of your points. It hits Britain as a whole.
Why would you make Britain my thing? I know it's true, but
yes.
You don't have to say it on air.
We've had multiple occasions in like Hated in the Nation, the Waldo moment where you've been like, let me bust out some modern UK political history for y'all. Drop the beat, and then you start talking about UK political history. But secondarily, you were also much more into like crime thriller-esque, sort of like poly-crime, whatever you want to call it, that sort of genre. And that to me is, like, if I'm going to very succinctly talk about my opinions on this episode, this feels like a parody of those sort of, like, high stakes polycrime thrillers.
Yeah. And let's run through it real quick, because, like, the quick summary of this episode is extremely simple.
Yeah.
Someone has kidnapped the beloved fictitious princess of England, who is a social media darling. They have released a video demanding that the Prime Minister fuck a pig on all television channels live, or the princess be killed.
Yes.
And yeah, that's
the episode.
That's the core conceit. After some stalling and hemming and hawing, the Prime Minister of Britain does fuck a pig on air, and
it ruins his marriage, but actually helps him politically, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Like, most of the intervening meat here, between the loaves of pig fucking, if you will, actually, it's weird for me to say, as we're both vegetarians, but anyway, the intervening meat here, like, is essentially media stuff going on. A few like, oh, we're gonna rescue her, you don't have to fuck a pig, Mr. Prime Minister. Oh no, we didn't find her, you're gonna have to fuck a pig, Mr. Prime Minister. It's a lot of that sort of like social, like media political machine, just kind of processing this whole thing, right? Like it's this strikes me as another one of Charlie Brooker's episodes about spectacle, right?
Yes, and it's also about like a lot of like British internal nonsense.
Yeah. I do want to make a little point here, because I don't think I'm going to come back to this at all, but it's interesting to flag. There's nothing sci-fi about this episode.
No.
Like, even in the Waldo moment, there's like a little bit, right? Like, there's the touch of like, oh, like a very well animated bear, I guess. Like, I am stretching it a bit, but like, the point is, this is the least techie episode possible.
Yes. Like, I do think it represents like an interesting like change in Black Mirror, right? Because like early Black Mirror is a lot like it's probably like also just a budget thing, but it is like quite like close to the present, or indeed just in the present, and down the line like it gets more sci-fi, but we're just doing like David Cameron related bits in this one.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because, okay, so, for those of you, I guess, who don't know, we should flag Piggate for a moment. Which, the rough summary of is that, like, and I'm gonna ask you, when did Piggate happen?
Why would you ask me? You read the Wikipedia page
You were reading it too! I have my Wikipedia page is on the episode now. I have shifted my priorities, Jorgen. Anyway, Piggate, rough summary. A person who makes an unofficial biography of David Cameron basically says, I heard from some guy that David Cameron put his genitals inside of a dead pig during his time in university.
Yeah.
And nothing has ever corroborated this. The person who supposedly had evidence of this has just been like, nah, dude, I got nothing for you. There's not a lot to it, but it became a talking point. Yeah,
no, it was like basically a British government or like British establishment figure who fancies himself a grey eminence was like, David Cameron has crossed me and I will destroy him with this unauthorized biography, which contains the claim that he put his dick and balls in a dead pig's mouth at a party.
As like an initiation ritual.
Yeah, it's like a weird hazing thing, I think, is the implication.
Yeah, that part is not super important. What I find interesting is if you're looking over there, it seems this claim occurred in 2015.
Yeah, that's when it broke containment, at least.
And this came out in 2011. This episode.
Oh,
right, because that's kind of what I was like looking at here.
Well, if we're getting into contextualization, the dead pig situation is also, and I think this is after, is a plot point in The Gentleman. What's his name? The lock, stock, and two smoking barrels guy.
I don't know.
Guy Ritchie.
Okay, yeah, Guy Ritchie. I knew that.
Yeah, a husband of Madonna, I think.
Really? Okay, this is we're name dropping too much here.
And he, in his more recent movie, The Gentleman, I don't think it's his most recent one, he also has some pig fucking in there. So, like, this... Let's go for a moment with the argument that David Cameron never did it, and just go, this episode clearly, like, planted a seed in the British cultural consciousness, though, as I'm saying it, I'm wondering whether this is the first domino.
It's an interesting question. I mean, like, the sort of, like, bestiality thing is, like, a thing sometimes has been thrown out in, like, 20th century politics for some reason. There's an example of it being in, like, US politics between Lyndon B. Johnson and his rival or whatever. I don't think it's super important. I think it's an interesting anecdote.
Yeah.
But I don't actually think Piggate is super relevant to this episode, as insane as that is to say.
I did just straight up think that this was directly about Piggate, though.
I understand that. There's a lot of reasons to think that, right?
Yeah.
And now we kind of have to move on from that emotionally.
Yeah. Like, what this episode is about, like, it touches on a few things, right? But the first really big one is that it is now possible to release news past established gatekeepers.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, because there's a point very early in the episode where they go like, "Don't worry, we shut it. It got uploaded to YouTube. We shut it down. People downloaded it in the 9 minutes it took for us to shut it down, and it's now everywhere. There is like no way of containing this."
Yeah.
We've been like putting pressure on the news channels. Some of them are agreeing, some of them aren't.
All the British ones are completely in lockstep.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. That is one of the major beats. The Americans get out with it.
I see.
Like, all the international channels are like, oh, what's this pig fucking story? The Brits are at it again, giving us great content. But yeah, no, like, that's like a strong plot point that, like, no, the British media all toes the line until it, like, breaches containment.
Right. Okay. Yes. Fair enough. But yeah, like, this episode is... Can I say it's remarkably focused for a Black Mirror episode?
It touches... Like, it does the thing where it, like, touches on quite a few things, but I think it just does so better than, like, a lot of other episodes that do this. Because...
Yeah, and I say also, like, that there's an element to this where I feel like the other things it touches on are actually well integrated into the core idea, right? Like, it's about spectacle, it's about mass media, it's about, like, the internet, obviously, to an extent, and just, like, the whims of politics, I suppose. And, and then there's, you know, sort of underneath that all is this, like, human desire for humiliation as entertainment, which... I think I'm going to come back to, like, the final couple of scenes of this episode, but I think it kind of talks about, or it kind of feels like it illustrates this idea of, like, people are drawn to things that they then regret, I suppose, is the way I will put it before we get further into it.
Yeah.
But I want to get back at some point to, like, why is this the first Black Mirror episode? But I think at its core... There are some, like, through lines here. It's very British. Let's start with that point. This is an extraordinarily British episode. The Queen is mentioned at one point, who I think is the actually only real character here, like, because everyone else is, like, a facsimile of, like, obviously...
I mean, the Queen, like, is in very much in theory also potentially part of the fictional setup. But yeah. Like, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, it could be. But it's probably the one where, like, they don't state it's Elizabeth.
Yeah.
But it might as well be in the universe. Whereas, like, obviously the other ones are very clear stand-ins, right? Like, our protagonist, the Prime Minister, Michael Callow, is David Cameron, right?
I wonder about that.
Really?
Yeah, because, like, he is more balding, and I do think David Cameron is quite, like, lacking in substance, and I do just genuinely think, like, replacing him with a guy with a far weaker hairline just, like, does genuinely change the vibe a whole lot. Yeah, I don't know how to, like, state that otherwise.
That's very interesting, because to me it just comes off as, like, this is David Cameron with the, like, serial numbers filed off for legal reasons at the very least.
Yeah, well, I suppose Britain has very harsh libel laws, but I do actually, like, I'm curious about the legal implications of doing this with, like, an actual public figure. I
am also curious about that, specifically in regards to the Queen. Now, to be clear, the Queen features in the fact that she says an ambiguous statement, and like, she has an ambiguous statement that is relayed by someone else to our protagonist Prime Minister. So they're probably pretty safe as far as that is concerned. But yeah, that's interesting. Like, I wonder if you could make that case under British libel law, that this is the Queen.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm mostly curious if you could just straight up make the guy David Cameron.
That could be interesting, yeah.
But yeah, no, you do touch on, like, a strange predilection of the British, which is, like, putting the Queen in media, but, like, never showing her face, obviously, because... you know, you don't have the queen.
Yeah, and she was, rip in peace, sufficiently distinctive that it would be hard to have a look-alike, I would say, in most cases. It depends kind of on the period of media, but anyway, episode. What does this episode actually talk about? Like, what is its central thematic elements? What is its thesis statements, etc., etc.?
It is about the British ruling class, right?
Absolutely. That's part of it.
Because, right, we have, like, the initial setup where it's like, oh, yeah, no, the media is all, like, in lockstep. British media is in lockstep, keeping this suppressed. This is obviously contrasted with the other point that it's no longer possible to do that, though I think that is a far more complicated issue than this episode really gets into. And this sort of continues because what ends up happening, a couple of beats later in the episodes, is that the Prime Minister, played by Rory Kinnear, by the way, is pressured into actually doing the deed by his, I don't know, like, party liaison or something?
Yeah, I was curious about that. Like, some close advisor of
he
the same party.
has two close advisors in the episode. One is his media guy, right? That's like the Morgan McSweeney to Keir Starmer nowadays.
Uh-huh.
And the other one is a person who speaks for the party.
Right.
And presumably there's some condensing going on here, but like that is kind of like the big factors. The party person is played by Lindsay Duncan, who you almost certainly have seen just like playing snooty British aristocrats and such things.
Yeah, I was gonna say she felt familiar.
No, you have seen her. You will be like, it's her, from the thing, and you won't be able to name the thing necessarily, but you'll recognize her.
Yeah,
she brings this like a certain presence to the role, which is quite interesting. That they have someone who has like dignity doing this. And her, like, sort of putting the bow on the establishment thread is her going, like, if you do not fuck this pig, the party will, like, kill...
let you get killed by...
Yeah, the party will just, like, throw you to the wolves. Like, you have no backing to do anything other than fuck the pig.
Yeah.
And... yeah... That is the British establishment, like, line in this.
I think there's also kind of an interesting thing with just, like, how the British elite is portrayed here, right? Because we have a couple of these, like, very high up people who are very casual.
Yeah.
Like, the Prime Minister himself is very, like, you know, he's still a British elite. But for being a British elite, he's almost casual in the way he like talks to his compatriot.
He also talks to normal, to me, a direct stand-in for David Cameron.
That's fair. But in comparison, someone like Alex, who I believe is the party liaison's name, she is very much like, yes, you know, we believe it's best you intercourse the pig.
Yeah, and there is another piece in this, which is the stand-in for broader media politics entanglement, which is like some lady working at a news channel sending progressively more explicit nudes to someone working in the government response team to get the deets on the thing, which, like...
It's a bit on the nose, isn't it?
It is very on the nose. It is just like a stand-in for like all these people know each other and are fucking each other. And part of British elite politics, which is just true.
It is certainly like pointing out the sort of incestuous nature of the upper classes here in British society, I suppose. What I will say is I contend that, like, as much as they are not actually featured that much in this episode, I do think the episode is fundamentally quite interested also in just the public, right? Like how the public interacts with something that is so dramatic, gross, immoral, yet still, like, clearly interesting, fascinating, even.
Yeah, we have, like, a few stand-ins.
Yeah.
Two crowds, one, like, at, I want to say, like, a hospital or something.
Yeah, I think, like, hospital workers, there's, like, a guy in an apartment with, at first, his girlfriend, I think. I think the girlfriend eventually leaves, but...
There's a kid who, like, shows up in their context, too. And... finally, there's just a bar where people are glued to the telly, and
like what I will say is this strikes me as kind of a thing that Charlie Brooker has done in some other episodes. White Bear being a prominent one, where like there's rarely a lot of agency being given to the public, right? Like, I think it is fundamentally a little bit misanthropic about how the public acts. I think it is fundamentally, like, a little bit stripping them of individual personality, as opposed to just making them faceless crowd who bays for the blood of spectacle, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
I think that is kind of like something that comes back in Charlie Brooker's work.
Yeah, they are like given like a little bit of life, right? Some of them have lines, some of them are like given a bit of characterization as quickly as possible.
Yeah, what I will say is that like, and I've noticed this in some shows where they're like they want to talk about like public, like normal people, but those normal people are given the this is a peasant. Like, this strikes me almost as, like, Game of Thrones peasant. Like, I want to get me pigs to the market. Like, that's kind of the characterization some of these people have.
Brigands stole me flat cap.
Yeah, I don't even know what you said, but yeah. But, like, the idea that, like, okay, we're gonna talk about members of the public, but they do not have personalities beyond being members of the public. Which is, whatever, I understand why you can't get into it, but it is, like... It's just like a kind of a tension in how you want to present this.
Yeah.
Because if you want to present normal people, there's a lot of those people.
Yeah, well, there is also another representative of the public, in this case a very literal representative, because he's not one himself, which is the media guy, who just keeps going like, yeah, the polls are currently saying this about the situation, Mr. Prime Minister. And this, again, is the Morgan McSweeney stand who delivers the... And, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, there is, of course, a third and fourth kind of an analog for the public. There is, of course, the television, which reports on things, and is, like, a bit in dialogue with the public. But then, finally, there is the pie charts. This episode fucking loves a pie chart that, like...
I support that.
Demonstrates the, like, wild swings in public opinion as, like, people figure out more about the situation.
Yeah.
Like, there is a subplot where where the party lady, like, starts setting up a faked porn shoot with a porn star.
Mm-hmm.
And just, like, goes for it and gets found out, and then public opinion swings wildly against
60
them.
percentage points, I want to say.
Yeah.
Because at first, like, the vast majority of people are like, he shouldn't fuck the pig. And then after this comes out, and, like, the princess gets one of her fingers severed, they're like, he's kind of a dick, he should probably fuck the pig.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know, that's one of those things that always like... I don't know how to approach this, because I do not fundamentally believe Charlie Brooker is openly elitist, but I think he has a streak of being like, oh, you know how the masses are.
Yeah.
And like, I can't entirely blame him for that, but I also can't really support him in that.
Yeah.
So I have complicated feelings on that point in particular. What I will say is that I think it interesting with those little snapshots of the public, not in the pie chart form, but in actual, like, viewing people following this. I think there's an interesting little tension, right, that we're being displayed here between the, like, well, this is horrific, but I can't look away, can I? Right? Like, there's something interesting going on there. And, like, it's maybe not the most surprising point to be making in this sort of situation, but, like, I don't know, like, I do want to... I think this is where I'm, like, going to talk, because there is the scene where ya boy David Callow, Michael Cameron, approaches the pig in the recording studio.
You know what, the name is Callow, so I'm coming back around to him being a Cameron stand-in.
Well, there you go. And he approaches the pig, and we get more and more shots of, like, the bar, the hospital, like, that one guy in his apartment. We see the streets completely empty, because, you know, people be busy this afternoon, this fine afternoon. And when the act begins, we, like, you know, we see the, like, raucous energy of the bars slowly turn to, oh my god, like, this is happening, it's horrific, and no one turns off the telly. In fact, there's a point in the hospital where a girl tries to turn off the telly and is, like, pushed away, like, quite gently, because this is, like, transfixing, right?
And the guy's like, no, this is history.
And I think that's kind of interesting, right? Because I think that says something about the, like, event media, I suppose, in the 21st century, where we get to see all of these atrocities. We get to see so many horrors, from fucking a pig to probably worse things out there. Like, I don't know, like, it's maybe a weird analog, but, like, I know people who have seen the, like, ISIS beheading videos that came out in the 2010s.
Yeah, no,
right?
like, people... this is, like, a slight tangent, but, like, people talk about them like everyone has seen them. I haven't.
I have not either.
I reckon most people haven't, but, like, there is just, like, sort of a portion of the world where, like, it was just, like, just that bit more online who was like, well, obviously everyone's seen them.
Yeah.
They're wrong, naturally.
There's, like...
But, yeah.
You know, like, I don't know, it's a strange thing to deal with. Like, because I don't think you have made a bad moral choice if you watch this. Maybe more the pig thing than, like, the beheading video, like, I don't know. It's complicated, right? But, like, I do not think it's inherently, like, you are contributing to ISIS if you have seen it. But I can also see that, like, it is kind of uncomfortable to know, in a way, right? That, like, so many people have seen it. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm not saying, like, I know it's a hot take. I think we should deplatform ISIS. But yeah, like, I don't know. It's a strange thing to reckon with.
Yeah. I want to, like, take a step to another episode briefly, because this is not the only episode that has this sort of very public ransom demand plot. I don't even know what season the other one is. The one with the bees.
Oh, Hated in the Nation. That's season 3. The last episode of season 3, I think. So
this idea does get, like, given another go.
Yeah, kinda. Is there a ransom demand? It's more like we're gonna kill, like, a person each day.
Yeah. So, but, like,
it's still fundamentally about. Well, it's very British. Let us start off there, and it's very much about, like, social media, mass media, how it affects people, how it drives people into mobs and stuff like that, essentially.
Yeah, and, like, it is also just, like, particularly interested in the, like, both of these episodes are very interested in the establishment's impotence in this situation, right?
I think it's also a very fascinating comparison, because when I think about Hated in the Nation, that one is very misanthropic, right? Like, it's essentially saying, yeah, like, everyone's gonna want to kill people if they like had, if they just had, like, a button to press to vote for kill bad person who's shown in media. In this episode, both sides are kind of sympathetic, right? Whether you want the Prime Minister to fuck pig or not, like, it's kind of framed as being like, you know, okay, on one hand, no, he shouldn't have to do it to respect his dignity and not to negotiate with terrorists. On the other, he should do it because it's about saving a person's life. And I apologize for saying this, an important person's life in the eyes of the British public, right?
Yeah. And just to, like, for completeness, there are, like, again, some mid-credit scenes which reveal some details, like, to denouement the situation, which is that the thing was an extreme art project by some artist.
Yeah.
And he did not, in fact, chop off the princess's finger, but just, like, stole her ring and used his own, and then killed himself once he was successful.
Used his own. I didn't even catch that. That's so obvious in hindsight.
Yeah. And like that. I don't think that does that much for the story, for like the themes. It just like explains why someone would do this.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, right? And this might be a troublesome take, but clearly that guy who kidnapped the princess as an art project, who they explicitly mention is doing it to make a point, is Charlie Brooker. I mean, like obviously Charlie Brooker has not done something like this. To be clear, Charlie Brooker, apart from problematic depictions of mentally ill people and women and just like sort of awkward takes about racism, he has not done bad things in the capital B sense.
Yeah.
But it's still about like, yeah, he's making like a spectacle to prove a point about spectacles.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because I cannot imagine, I don't remember how it was, but just the idea of like you being on the internet in 2011, 2012, and someone goes like, oh yeah, have you seen this new show? The first episode is about a British Prime Minister fucking a pig. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I have to imagine that has helped the marketing.
I said this, like, before we watched the episode, because, like, with an anthology show, they get to pick their release order, and nowhere more than season 1 do you want to, like, have a serious landing. Like, you want to, like, make a statement. So, like, in a way, we should read this as, like Black Mirror's manifesto.
Yeah, and I think it tracks a lot of things, right? It tracks a lot about the idea of like Charlie Brooker's view of like the public and mass media and social media and like that effect it has on human nature. The thing I and as I mentioned kind of at the start of this episode, like the interesting thing about this is that it's not sci-fi at all. And I wonder if that was made to make it easier to pull you in. Because obviously, like, Black Mirror, there's a few episodes, only really like this one and the Waldo moment, where there's almost no sci-fi whatsoever, I want to say. I guess there's Maisie Day. That one, and Demon 79, but both of those are in season 6.
Yeah, but both of those have, like, yeah, that's right. And both of them have, like, a fantasy component instead.
Yeah.
Which, you know, sci-fi fantasy, it's not interchangeable.
It's basically
but
the same thing.
Not real.
Yeah. But, like, overwhelmingly, Black Mirror is, and was at the time as well, described as a sci-fi show. And it is. Like, it deeply uses technology. Now, there's occasions where it maybe doesn't use it well, but it is still aesthetically sci-fi, even at its lowest moments, I would say.
And I want to say that, like, this episode does not deviate from that, right? Because, like, it's still aesthetically sci-fi. It's about...
How?
Well, I think it's extremely about, like, the... It is sci-fi, and it is sci-fi that is making the claim that we live in the future, right? Because it is talking, like, it is seeing, like, the presence of what was then, like, what is to us now extremely retro YouTube and Twitter, as, like, the encroachment of, like, an alien information system, right? And I think it's got a point, right? I think it is just, like, really, like, pulling out all the stops to, like, highlight the strangeness of it all. And I don't, like, it doesn't entirely get over the line for me, because, like, the art project, the supposed art project, doesn't, like, make that much sense to me.
It doesn't. We can get back to that if you want. I completely looked at the art project thing as, let's sweep that one under the rug. That's an allusion to Charlie Brooker doing this show. After that, I do not care about the specifics, which is maybe me being lazy, but, like, that is also what Black Mirror has inspired in me, in general, to be like, the specifics here do not matter. It's about vibes.
Well, yeah, I think you could do, like, a lot of, like, speculative reading on that angle, but I don't think, like, the show gives it so much focus, so I don't think... and I, like, don't have anything where I'm like, this is very interesting.
Nah, to me, like, it's two things. It's like, I read it as an allusion to just the purpose of Black Mirror, I suppose. Yeah. And if you don't buy that, then it's just a hand wave. And I don't know. I shrug at that and move on, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's that deeply meaningful. But I want to get back to the sci-fi thing, because to me, I see what you mean. I could draw the philosophical parallel there. But I'm not sure I fully buy into that, and I would say aesthetically, it is still not sci-fi.
Yeah.
And I think that's because that's the thing, right? Because, like, okay, let's talk about sci-fi for a moment as a concept.
Oh.
Yes. So, sci-fi, it is two things to me when someone says, here's a sci-fi thing. It can be both. It can be, well, if it's neither, it's probably not sci-fi in the first place, but it can be either or both. It is aesthetics, and I mean that fairly literally. I mean, like, you know, if you have laser guns, you qualify as sci-fi. If you have, like, sleek, you know, spaceships, whatever, like, there's a lot of small things that can make you aesthetically sci-fi. And then there's the philosophically sci-fi, which is fundamentally about, let's talk about technology. How does it impact us?
Yeah.
And that impact us is vague, but it's still, like, what I would say is the philosophical core of sci-fi, right? Like, extending, you know, snow crash, whatever, like, Neuromancer, I don't know why I'm only mentioning cyberpunk. I hate to say it, Detroit Become Human was in my head on the list here. Like, and it's not good, but it is certainly both aesthetically and philosophically sci-fi. Yeah. This one... Star Trek, thank you. A great one. And that one is also, like, both... Obviously, it's one of the definers of aesthetical sci-fi, but it is also very deeply interested in what happens when technology gives us post-scarcity societies, right?
Yeah.
Point being, this episode, aesthetics, not at all. Philosophically, to an extent.
Yeah. And, yeah, I think that is sort of part of, like, the earlier seasons vibe, right? Because
yes,
of, like, I reckon it is partially because of budget constraints and partially because Charlie Brooker, like, was not the household name he is now.
Yeah, like, the Wall moment is deeply paralleled with this one, right? As, like, completely aesthetically, not at all philosophically, to an extent.
Yeah.
And then you have something like Be Right Back, which has some aesthetics, just the idea of robot boyfriend, but it's still very light on that.
Yeah, and the aesthetics are, like, quite muted.
Exactly. Whereas I would say, in future seasons, we're gonna get a lot more aesthetic sci-fi, and to an extent, probably less philosophical sci-fi.
Yeah. I think, like, White Christmas is probably, like, the capital B breaking point. Or it's the break between, like, the aesthetics being more muted and the aesthetics being quite openly put on.
I see what you mean. So it's interesting to me that this is the first episode, right? Because, like, the aesthetics of sci-fi seem to become a lot more important going forward in the seasons.
Yeah. I wonder about this episode, like, as a manifesto. Because, like, full disclosure, I did not see the artist doing the thing is obviously Charlie Brooker himself. Because, I don't know, I have some immunity to seeing self-indulgent self-insertions.
But, like, okay, to be fair...
No, I'm with you. I just keep not spotting it.
That's fair.
There was another episode where, like, you immediately clocked it, and I was like, yeah.
Was it Black Museum? Charlie Brooker's the Devil Man?
Maybe. I think Charlie Brooker was a bit weird. Black Museum was a bit weirder because it has more of the, like, but you're watching angle, right? But yeah, no, like, I think these sort of, like so, and both of those are episodes concerned with spectacle, and both of those also being episodes that are, like, more winking at the camera. Like, it makes sense in an obvious way, right? Because you're watching the spectacle. So it makes sense to do that meta commentary. But, like, I wonder if it also speaks to, like, a particular importance. Like, if this is something that Charlie Brooker wants to convey particularly much.
About, like, himself in the show, or what do you mean?
No, about, like, the topic, right? Because I think it's an important thing, right? Because, like, ultimately that is, like, the issue of our time. Like, there are other issues of our time, but they are not purely of our time, whereas this spectacle and like particularly the online nature of it, right?
Yeah, how it's transmitted, how it engages people, how it
that
creates frenzies.
It's like, sure, you can find historical parallels, but like we're living in like a specific new configuration of it, and it's already changing again, right? And I think like in that sense, like it makes sense for Charlie Brooker to go, audience, please, think about this. This is a big one, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's not as meditative and more like, actively trying to get you to engage.
Yeah. One last point I want to talk about before we maybe like head back to the episode itself as like a self-contained thing is I want to compare it to a moment to Nosedive, my favorite episode of Black Mirror. No, but like I think it's an interesting question because here Charlie Brooker is, whether you want to say that like this analysis is flawed, which I think it is, but like not to an extreme extent. Charlie Brooker is genuinely interested in, here's a messed up system. Mm-hmm. He loves messed up systems.
He's interested in them.
Maybe
he loves talking about them. He loves putting them on a very big screen, and
then making people go
wiggling them until it gets weird.
But I think it's an interesting thing here because, like, something I think we both criticized Charlie Brooker for in later seasons is that like he does not have a good explanation for, or like even it seems interested in, how do these systems occur? How are they created? How are they maintained? Nosedive, we have like, and we talked about this during that episode where it's like, why are people on Instagram so much? And the answer the episode gives is because else you can't get healthcare, which is a non sequitur, right? Here, there is genuine interest in why are people partaking in something they clearly think is horrific and gross and like, in hindsight, regret. It talks about that fascination with humiliation and with the gross and disgusting, right?
Yeah, and I guess this is a good point to like head a bit more back directly to the episode.
Yeah.
Because there's a second part to the epilogue, which is like, oh yeah, no, the Prime Minister is politically fine. It's just that his wife won't speak to him.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by that. I don't know what to say about it.
Well, putting it in directly this line of reasoning, you could just like read that as like everyone goes like, ooh, that was crazy, and just like moves past it with extreme like repression.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've obviously seen this episode before, as is the premise of this show, but it's been a long time. And I did, because I remember that there was like a broadcast at the end where they were like, Prime Minister's doing fine. Privately, he hates his life, roughly. I did not remember, because my conceptualization of Britain as a country is that they would have looked at all of this thing, and once it was over, they would have been like, we're never speaking about this again. Like, it would have become an apocalypse like, yes, since the event...
Well, there's another detail, because we are shown there to be essentially two people who have not seen the broadcast. One is the princess, who is extremely sedated and being like released into the world at this point, because the artist was like, I'm not gonna kill her, I'm just an artist.
Yeah.
So he lets her go before the broadcast. And the wife of the Prime Minister.
Isn't she sitting and watching the TV?
I think she's just like covering in the bed.
Right. Maybe. I think it's an interesting question.
Okay, we have gone back and checked. It is ambiguous. I'm still leaning towards she is like one of the two people not watching this, which is relevant to my theory in the sense that it would make sense for her to be one of the only people hung up on it in that sense, right? Because everyone else is, like, also, like, are co-conspirators in the spectacle.
Yeah, I mean, none of them have, like, a personal connection, right? Like, and
yeah.
So I'll fully admit something. And I'm sure I'm one of few here, but none of my partners have ever had sex with a pig. as far as I know. So I do not know what that would do to a relationship.
I'm glad you felt comfortable sharing that.
I know it's come up in therapy. The lack of okay, I'm stopping this right here. But yeah, like I don't know what it would do to a relationship, but I do like that they actually talk about this, right? Like, because I think, as mentioned, like there's the interesting shots of like the actors who we must condemn for their slowly moving.
Sorry, commend. Not you said condemn.
Oh, sorry. Yes, commend. Apologies.
Like
we condemn the characters, but not the actors.
And like there's a cast of thousands working here, and like all of these people for their tiny bit parts are just doing a great job. Like this, like
amusement turning to horror. Like it's genuinely really well acted. Like you just see this chorus of people who, like, already at the start there is like a range from amusement to disgust, but like over time as we get these shots it slowly turns to just abject horror and like this clear look on their faces of like, this is bad.
Yeah.
But what else I'm here in this pub, what else am I gonna do?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the heart of the episode, right?
Yeah. And I want to, for a moment, before we continue with that, I want to get back to just the fact that, like, we talk about the Prime Minister's wife as one of the few who doesn't see it, right? But just the fact that, like, we also get this shot of the Prime Minister himself, like, he does a thing that, like, we were laughing during this episode, right?
Yeah, we thought it was extremely funny.
But I think it's also, like, I think it's good, I guess, that we get to see, like, the horror of the aftermath of this. That is, like, public humiliation. Because this is the part, to me, that perhaps most of all shines on to the present moment, right? Because there's what I can only imagine to be hundreds of people every week who suffer some sort of humiliation on TikTok or YouTube. Yeah. And for those people, that experience lives on for years and years. And for everyone else, it's a source of amusement. And then a week later, it's gone.
Yeah, I think there is like going back a little bit to like what we talked about with last season, there's like a little bit of a development here because like as publics shrink, like you don't have the like, oh, this person is like known by everyone to have done like a bad tweet, and now people are just like, oh yeah, no, I don't remember that thing that destroyed your life that I was maybe a part of, and like that's how it works now. But in this episode, like, the implication surely must be that, like, he cannot, like, be in the world without and everyone around him just, like, is like, oh no, I see exactly one thing when I look at this man. So I think that is, like, a very different conception, or, like, a fairly different conception of like, public humiliation, because it's, in this conception, it's two-sided, whereas like in the modern as like things have changed a bit, like it seems to be like a lot more like fire and forget, but the people still like suffer the hurt all the same.
Yeah, like, and it's also like I'm gonna make a bit of a strange comparison here, but like I want to highlight something. This Prime Minister undergoes what I will at the very least call an unwilling sex act.
Mm.
And I think because he is a guy and this is an act of bestiality where clearly the pig is probably...
The pig is canonically sedated.
Yeah, like, this is horror. Like, genuinely. And I think the fact that this man is made to do this, I think, like, the fact that it's something that is considered funny, and the fact that, like, again, he's a guy, overshadows that this is coerced, right? Like, I think it's hard to say it's not. And I don't know, like, in a weird way, it reminds me of something like, there was a time in like the mid 2010s where you had prank videos that were just sexual assaults. And because like it was considered like it was framed as funny, we didn't look at it that way. Or at least a lot of people didn't look at it that way. And I feel like this, in a weird way, kind of mirrors that concept.
Yeah.
Ever so slightly. Just the idea that, like, if we frame this sexual assault as funny, we don't have to think about the trauma.
Yeah, but the episode wants us to sort of go through that, right? And then
Yes.
like recontextualize it.
And I think I have to give a lot of credit. I have to commend Charlie Brooker on actually having that fall down afterwards of this man experiencing something extremely traumatic, even beyond like all of the surrounding media and so on and so forth.
I think there is like also a greater theory of like spectacle in here, which is just like, and I don't think it's sophisticated or anything, but I think Charlie Brooker fundamentally is, and I think this is where I'm splitting with you a bit on the like diagnosis of this being quite, or at least subtly misanthropic. I think he is trying to like unearth something about human nature here, about the like very well known tendency to like look at something longer than you want to, right? Because that is like fundamentally the theory that underlies this episode, right? That he's sort of thinking about a lot. And I think putting it in this like particularly public context, like I think he's hitting on something that I'm like inclined to agree with, because like so much of like, and I think this is like a moment of like genuine prescience by him, like, or perhaps also looking back actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like specifically at like 9/11, I think like what he's like hitting on here is just like the news cycles, right? That of like terrible things, and like the way our attention is drawn in ways that we are not fully in control of. Because, and he frames this as like in my opinion, as like an internal battle. Whereas, like, obviously there is also, like, a systemic component to it. But he is, like, interested in the, like, internal side of, like, oh, yeah, no, I'm just, like, I'm intellectually aware that this is going to be something I should not see, and yet. So, I think there is, like, he is trying to say something about spectacle here that is more coherent than anything else I think he says anywhere else about spectacle in Black Mirror that I recall.
Do you know that quote, which I think might genuinely originate from Disco Elysium, the idea of like capital has the means to subsume all criticism, even that which opposes it becomes part of it?
I think that's pre-Disco Elysium, but
okay,
go on.
Fair enough. I think I know it from Disco Elysium. But anyway, I think that is kind of applicable to spectacle, right? Like, even if you look at, hey, the Prime Minister is going to be sexually coerced on live television due to a terrorist kidnapping of the royal family, you can look at that and be like, clearly I should not watch this.
Yeah.
But you're going to partake of it on some level, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard not to, because it will be all around you, as this episode is very quick to point out. Like, this is on every television everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Like, live updates constantly. Like, even if you are opposed to the spectacle, you are taking part of the spectacle, right? Like, if everyone around you is talking about this event, you can't just be like, so how about the weather?
Yeah.
Like, if you are very opposed to it, you have to become part of it by opposing it and saying, like, I don't think we should do this, guys, at which point you are talking about the spectacle.
Yeah, like, it has a social mechanism. I think there's also, like, and I think this is also something the episodes are gently hints at, the desire to know what's next, what's going to happen, right? Because, like, I think, like, if you look at any news coverage of, like, major thing, or rather, like, if you look at yourself observing news coverage of, like, a major event, I find that at least I, like, try to find, like, the like substantive like prognosis, like what does this actually mean, what is going to be the fallout of this. And I have found, like, over some number of repeats of this experience, that like it tends to be the case that nobody fucking knows.
Nobody fucking knows. I think there's also, like, to me, when I think about how I handle this sort of stuff, like, because I recognize that impulse, and I do try to fight it, and I think I'm actually quite good in the moment of fighting it. The problem usually becomes afterwards. Like, I have a very clear example of, like, when Trump got elected for his second term. I was not thinking about it that much that day before, but the morning off, first thing I do is get up and look at my computer.
Yeah, and like the thing, of course, is that like even though you know that no one can possibly know like how something is going to shake out, because it's just the beginning of an event, or like it's, I don't know, like it's gonna happen at 4 p.m. or not. Outside of your influence, like you still like are just drawn to like the source of information for like what is going to happen next. And I think that like Charlie Brooker like doesn't fully hit this home because he doesn't like focus so much on the experience of social media, but like it's there between the lines to some degree, right? And I think it is part of like the modern style of news cycles and the modern like way that social media works, right? It is that desire to know what's going to happen next before it does, and therefore like just like being absolutely fucking glued to a screen or a feed.
And I think that's like that I mean that hits on a very core human thing. Like, we are meant to be predictive because like prediction means survival. We are coded this way from the ground up. Like, so when we have like, here's 5 hours of analysis, we're going to be like, cool, predictions. Yeah. Surely we can get something out of this massively complicated topic by a bunch of dudes sitting around a table.
Or like, this exact place is where the next piece of information is going to come from.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's also gambling side, because it's like, oh, is the thing coming or not? It's an uncertain reward, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
And, like, I think, like, it's not as in focus as I would like it to be, but, like, this episode, like, is thinking about those things fairly prominently, and I think it hits something, like, quite well. And it is also, I must repeat, of course, we commend, like, putting some focus on the gravity as well, but, like, it is just, like, inherently funny how, like, it is, because the episode itself is also built like this, right? You well, as a person more familiar with Black Mirror, like, you know that it is going to end up there, probably.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're not, that is the question that, like, drives you through the episode, right? And you just, like, see all these forces, like, compounding to, like, force this, like, all the events, like, is he going to, like, be able to arrest the guy? No.
That one I feel is almost quite obvious, though, but yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, there is just, like, there are all these Hail Marys being shot, and you're like, I don't think any of these is going to come through, so you just, like, keep watching the train approach the crash without slowing down, and, like, that is, so the episode also, like, mechanically leverages this, right, and I think it is just, like, such a, like, strong diagnostic piece, but also, like, it is just funny watching, like, all these forces come together towards this, like, completely absurd, like, conclusion.
I think if we had more time, I would have loved to investigate your views on this sort of stuff, just because, again, you have a lot more familiarity with these sorts of, like, poli-sci crime thrillers, and, like, all of the, like, Situation Room to media to, like, Prime Minister's office. Like, I think they use the language very well to convey, but also, like, you know, obviously the Prime Minister is sitting there talking to his very old butler-esque English man going like, I'm not gonna fuck a pig.
Well, yeah, I think there is a very like obvious parallel to be drawn, because all of those things are structured in such a way that for the runtime you're going to have like a bunch of like developments and Hail Marys and changes, and in the end, one of them, perhaps one that is foreshadowed well if it's a good piece, or not it, or just completely incidental if it's like less well constructed or not focused on the actual plot mechanics so much, is going to pan out. And here it is not that. Right? That is the sort of meta commentary that is happening.
Yeah.
So it is quite straightforwardly well, it's not a send up, but it is just a very direct commentary on like, well, what if the stakes are a lot more dumb and absurd, and what
no
if
one gets anywhere?
Yeah, no one, and all the like Hail Marys just fizzle, because they should, right? And so it turns into a very different piece of just like watching it come together, and yeah.
And there we are. I want to say one thing about this episode. Second, or chronologically first, but for our podcast, second great British Prime Minister character.
Yeah.
Hated in the nation. Funnier Prime Minister.
Yeah.
This one is an actual character, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and yeah, I think there is like a lot of stuff in this episode that is more nascent, but also like it is nascent because it's more prescient than, you would want it to be. But like, I think this episode like is strangely, because like he should be getting better at it, is like one of the strongest like pieces of just like contending with like a society that is becoming increasingly structured around instant information and spectacle. And like it doesn't, in my opinion, like hit the diagnosis that well, because like the contours aren't like that solid yet, right? Like peak spectacle in like the history after this episode is just straight up like the election of Donald Trump.
Yeah. And
subsequent presidency to like maybe a lesser degree even.
Yeah.
But like it is that, right? This episode is deeply inadvertently just straight up about the election of Trump in like a very oblique way that is, I think, getting to the heart of the matter a bit better than a lot of other pieces. And I think like I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I think I get why people like Black Mirror. Right? Because
wow, that's a big thing, isn't it?
Right, like I think it is just like a strong thesis statement, and I don't think it's followed up well all of the time, but like it is just like it represents a desire to reckon with the things of the present more like clearly
and more honestly. Like I think one of the things that has always like I don't think I had this reflection going in when I was watching those original episodes, but now the more and more I cast my gaze backwards, so many times when Black Mirror wants to say a thing about society, its own need to over exaggerate really undermines it. Because like Hated in the Nation, I think, is a pretty fine episode, all things considered. But when they're like, and then the bees kill everyone, I'm a bit like, I don't think it's inherently bad, but something about it just takes me out of it. You know what I mean? And here it's like, this is quite subdued.
Well, I think it like sort of uses the absurdity to like sort of quarantine some of that.
Yeah, I think so too. But it's just like the ability, and like there are some really bad episodes, such as The Baby Was Blind All Along,
or Metalhead.
Metalhead. Metalhead I don't think super qualifies for what I'm trying to say here. Yeah. But Metalhead is bad. I think we can all agree on that. Carthago de Lenda est, and so on and so forth. But yeah, like this, I don't know. This one hits better just because like it doesn't go as nuts.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it needs to. I don't think it needs to take that hyperbole and go nuts with it.
Yeah, like I want to come back to the initial question of, is this episode supposed to be funny? And like I'm still a bit torn. I've come more around to it knows what it's doing.
I think it very much knows.
But
what
like
it's doing.
it does just also like it is a very effective like doing two things at once episode. So like there's just a lot of strength in this episode.
Yeah, I think this is like because I don't think Charlie Brooker manages to be funny when he tries to be funny a lot of the time. And I want to preface that, because that sounds like too much of a dunk. Black Mirror is not typically a comedy show.
Yeah.
That's not super necessary.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because when other times when it's like, oh, this is supposed to be comedic, that can just be characterization. Then you have, of course, the other parts that are not meant to be that funny, but like Striking Vipers absolutely nails the comedy by accident. Yeah. Which is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But like here, I do think this is genuinely designed and built as a black comedy, then at the end goes like, should you be laughing at this? Are you sure?
Or, you know, I don't think it's even that judgmental. It just wants you to think about it.
Yeah, I might be overestimating like the judgmental. Because like if you want judgmental, you have Black Museum. You have Nosedive to an extent. Like there's judgmental episodes here. Yeah. If you're a true crime lover, you have Loch Henry. Oh. But yeah, I don't know.
I thought you were going to say Crocodile. That's why I groaned so despairingly.
Crocodile is also extremely funny.
Moving on.
I don't have much more to say, honestly.
Yeah,
I think this is a competent episode. I think it's remarkable that it's the first episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
For many reasons. Like, genre is one thing, but even that, like, it's so condensed here, right? Like, and you can see the threads that spin out to be the later Black Mirror, but you can also see a lot of its own thing, a lot of its own flavor here.
Yeah, and it's it's a prescient episode that is like in a way a bit before its time, because it like can't quite grab all of the things that it's like thinking about so clearly, because they haven't coalesced entirely yet.
No, but as compared to later Black Mirror episodes, it doesn't feel like it's waving out of the ride trying to catch everything at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it seems to give gentle pointers to other things, other concepts, without being, let's make a half-hearted like, this says something about commercialism, doesn't it? And then like it obviously doesn't.
I mean, it does do like a tiny bit of that, because I do think like the British establishment angle isn't like, it's interesting. I think it's well observed. I don't think it like contributes to the point about spectacle.
Perhaps not. But I think it's well done. It is. I don't know. Like I'm kind of content.
I suppose it is like sort of there by proxy that the establishment has lost control over spectacle.
I suppose, yeah.
I think the episode is like feeling deeply fucking ambiguous about that.
I think to an extent, yeah. I think there's also like perhaps a follow-up of like the way the elite sort of accidentally fuels spectacle by its own incompetence, right? Like such as with did we say his name? Porn Star Man?
It's probably like Rod Hardgood or something.
I think Rod was part of it. Hot take. Rod is not a hot word to me whatsoever. Rod Senseless. Oh, that's actually quite good. I'm turning around. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, next episode. The second episode of Black Mirror is 15 Million Merits.
I fucking hope they keep up this quality, at least in season 1.
Yeah. I don't know, honestly. Like, I know the plot of this coming episode. I know the plot of the last episode of season 1. I'm going to be really interested in seeing how I feel watching it again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward now, perhaps more than I have in at least a very long time.
That's so nice to hear, Jorgen. You have hope for the future again.
Well, hope for the distant past, I guess, in this case. But yeah, no, with that said, thank you so much for listening. And
don't get kidnapped.
And yeah, don't get kidnapped.
Or either a loved one or a politician may have to do bestiality.
I do not endorse that message.